Good morning. Good morning from Tampa, Florida. And today we have a very special guest. This is our second week of the Grandma's March, a collective weaving on feminine wisdom. And it has been amazing so far. And every day gets so even better. Today we have, like I just said, a special guest, Abi. And I think Abi, hello, Abi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome. Actually, welcome back because, yeah, again, we had a video with Abby even before we started the event. And yeah, we presented on the first session that we had. At that point, she was representing three sisters, but now Abby's back to tell us a little bit about her story and the work she does with the wisdom of cycles, which I'm really excited because I really want to learn about this, and all women should be really interested. But we were talking also that not only women, but is men is also good that they understand a little bit why is important our nature, our cyclical nature, and why women function different. So I want to introduce a little bit about Avi before we start here. And Avi, she's a passionate advocate for cyclical living and all things seasonal, which I love that. And she actually brings her embodied intuitive wisdom to her work with women, and she also works supporting women with functional medicine and menstrual medicine circles. So that's why today we're going to talk about the wisdom of cycles and
Mm.
understand a little bit how this cyclical nature that we have and what is the amazing work that you do. So welcome, Avi.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, it's really it's a favourite subject of mine, the menstrual cycle and how we connect to all of cycles. You know, recognizing that everything in us is operating in a rhythm, as the outer seasons, the day and night. There's loads and loads of cycles kind of going on within us, and yeah, there's a real feeling of how much closer it brings us to nature, to kind of acknowledge these cycles. So yeah, the menstrual cycle is really kind of coming into a relationship with the menstrual cycle, whether as a woman, I'm quite keen that we open out the space of menstrual work to beyond just women. And so I tend to use the language people who menstruate. So yeah, just finding how you can come into relationship with your cycle and use it as an ally in your life, so it becomes, you know, less of a like, oh, one day I was like this, the next day I was like this, well, and then I'm like this, and I don't
I
really,
know.
you know, it's like, how can we embrace the fact that we change, that we're you know, on this kind of rise and fall of energy. We operate in that expansion and contraction just as nature does. There's life and then there's death, and this is, you know, it's not a way that's sort of supported in kind of modern Western way of being. You know, we need to be ongoing, producing up, growth, expansion all the time. You know, that's the only part of us that's kind of celebrated, and made desirable. But actually, we're not that all the time. So it's a reclamation of this whole body of work. Really is a reclamation of what we know inside our bodies, because it's happening inside our bodies. We just, you know, we kind of need to go in for our guide on how to be more authentic, how to recognize our own nature, how to one of the sort of primary things that it brings us in touch with is our own needs and how they change. We don't need the same things all of the time. We don't need the same level of interaction with other people. We don't need the same food. We don't need the same amount of rest. It's, you know, it's all in flux. And you know, when we can kind of come and be more honest, be more in tune with what our body's telling us. There's a beautiful intimacy in that, in terms of how close we are to ourselves, and also how close we are, to our bodies and our psyches. So it's really precious and profound work. And that in the bigger picture, and another side of it that I'm really passionate about is that it's uplifting, and that like this is important, that we this isn't something that just goes on over here. This is actually like there's wisdom, there's power, there's so much. And like you said, there seems to be a real push at the moment. It's interesting that you said about you kind of brought up the men, and or people who don't cycle, and what do they need to, what might they be curious about who do cycle, if they're in work relationship, family, living relationship with people who cycle, and there seems to be a real sense of real yearning for that, for these mysteries to be more understood, and to be brought out of the shadows, and less taboo. And that's that to me is really, really, really good.
Oh yes, and I love it. I love it because actually what I can see around this is such an ancestral wisdom, and it should be like our basic knowledge as soon as we are born, as soon as we become, especially we women, become teenagers. But this society that we live, and as you say, especially in the Western side, they don't teach us about this. They don't tell us about this. And even sometimes our moms and grandmothers soon from us, and some of us, they didn't know about these things. It was hidden from us, this basic knowledge that we should be so connected. When you go back and you read or learn about how women will get together when they were cycling, or the red tents, or it was so important to respect that nature and cyclical nature, but we all forgot about that. And the patriarchy, for sure, it brought a lot of taboo and things around. And some of our countries are very, or either Catholic or very religious. So that is respect. We respect that. But at the end, I think women were looking again for that, understanding where we come from, how our bodies function, and that's why it's important men to understand, because we are all in a society where they need also to understand how women or function. So I just wonder, and I'm curious, tell us a little bit about your story and your journey, and how all this ancestral wisdom, how did you get in touch with that, and what's the story behind that until now? And of course, tell us about the work you do, and then
So for me, I love that you say about the kind of bringing back that kind of harmony of that everybody needs this knowledge, because it's and that's the biggest thing from years of doing this work. The first thing that people say is, why didn't I know this? Why is it, there's an enormous grief, because it lands like this deep knowing in our bones, in our blood, literally, of course this is how it is. And why did nobody tell me? It's there's a real process to be kind of gone through with that. My personal journey with the cycle is, my mum struggled very significantly with her periods and with her cycle. She had very, very severe endometriosis, and which is one of the issues in women's health that is least respected, honoured, understood. It takes on average 7 years to get diagnosed. It's kind of it's still horrendous. I mean, she's 75 now, but people are still having similar experiences to what she had many, many years ago. So she had a very challenging relationship with her cycle. And so I witnessed that it meant pain and hospitalization, and, you know, she had many operations and, you know, really, really challenging stuff. And then when I started my period on my first day at secondary school, which was just like, oh no, I
I know.
all these new things all at once.
I didn't like it at all.
Right, it's huge, you know, and it was kind of met at home with a bit of like, oh, you're going to have the same terrible time as I had, which, you know, I was fortunate I didn't, and I did have pretty painful periods, like from the beginning, but it was certainly encapsulated with this kind of thing that was difficult. You know, it was going to be hard, and, you know, life was going to be a challenge, and you know, and it wasn't sort of spoken about. And I had a cycle circle with some women the other day, and, you know, there was the talk of putting the tampons up your sleeve at school, and, you know, not letting anybody see. And I think those things are really, really changing now, which is brilliant. So that was sort of the world that I sort of inhabited. And then I spent many years from when I was around 30 trying to conceive, and had a kind of hateful relationship with my cycle, because every month I wanted to be pregnant, and then I wasn't. You know, then my blood would come, and, you know, it would feel disappointing, and there would be the grief, and so at some point in that process, I recognized that I needed to kind of find a different relationship to this, and, you know, come to terms with, you know, perhaps I won't have children, and, you know, what does that mean? Who am I as a woman? You know, if that's my truth, then so yeah, it was kind of quite a deep dive into, and then it was actually my mum who introduced me to the work of Red School, and I work now with Red School as a mentor on the leadership program that they run, and yeah, that just opened this whole kind of body of work and way of understanding the cycle, and the map of the inner seasons, which I can talk a bit about, and that it, you know, it gave me a way to come into a kinder, softer, more loving relationship with myself, and you know, recognize the cycle was something beyond. It wasn't just something that happens in my body to create a baby at which I was failing and therefore that's, you know, kind of crappy. You know, it was actually offered, you know, this whole life birthing creativity, that it was like, there's so many more aspects of woman than baby making, in relation to the menstrual cycle. And there was all these little things I could learn about myself in all the different phases, and you know, bits that were tricky and bits that were really, really nice, and how to sort of bridge all of that. So it was just this, you know, this enormous rich landscape of possibilities, I guess.
That is amazing. And I really remember also, like you were saying, like when I got my period, that was a time that it was like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible and painful and not fun, because it's like, okay, I cannot play, I cannot behave anymore the way so I have to behave different. And now my mom was concerned because, of course, now I can have babies. So there she goes. I have to be worried about her. And so it's something that we carry, like it's heavy, you know, it feels heavy, and like every month we have to deal with this, and we hate it, and we try to avoid it in so many ways, and there is out there and a whole industry of pharmacy and remedies to just try to avoid this and don't feel it, and kind of extinguish from our lives, and so then we get disconnected from all the beautiful part that you're saying, all that creativity, the mysterious side, and the beautiful side about it, because we just don't get it, you know.
And how it really connects us with nature. You know, nature isn't on all the time. You know, there is this like deep period of winter where everything is underground, and it's, you know, receiving nourishment, it's resting, it's quiet. Like, why would we not need that? You know, this whole kind of divorced from nature thing that we've been kind of conditioned with. It's like, it's not true. We are that. We want to, in our kind of, so to sort of talk a little bit about the map of the inner seasons. So the inner winter is the time of menstruation, and the time of the darkness and the dropping and the rest, the surrender. And then comes the spring, these tiny new shoots, and a little bit more energy, and the possibility of moving out, emerging into the world, but tenderly, just in small steps. That I was reflecting as it's spring here, reflecting on the very subtle nature of how, one day there's like one petal on the flower, then there's another. It happens very, very gradually, and we can emerge like that back out into the world, and then to the point of ovulation, the inner summer, where we're naturally, biologically, our time for making babies and attracting mates, and we want to flirt and connect and be our kind of shiniest selves. And then, that energy dies down, and we go into a kind of autumn, fall time where things just start to drop away. And this is the time that's kind of, autumn and winter really are the times that are least respected and revered. This is the home of PMS, the time where we don't want to put up with much from the world. We're starting that process of withdrawing, and sometimes that tension of, if we operate in a world that wants us to be the same every single day of the month, and produce, then that time there's a real tension there, because our inner nature, our psyche, wants us to slow down, to begin that process of letting go and withdrawing and coming back home, coming back in, to this composting, getting closer to death. So it's, the map of the seasons is a really useful place to begin in, figuring out how to understand oneself.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see very clear and more that you're talking now, that there is really a relation between nature and menstrual cycle, and we were talking about, like, especially in this world that is not cyclical at all, because our system is production, and never stops, and it never stops. How do you think, and what do you do through your work to create that awareness, and to, especially for women and others, because you said you also work with men, or are starting to work with men, to understand all this? How do you think we can create some awareness, and I imagine that's your work around. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's really it's gathering the critical mass. I think it's, when enough people come along and say, do you know what, enough is enough. This is there's this thing, I'm changing all the time, and it's, and what do we need for that? We need allies. We need more of us. We need to hear each other's stories, and the men need to hear the stories. The non-menstruators need to hear the stories from the menstruators. It's kind of, that's what it feels is really, really alive in this time, which is fantastic. Like getting beyond the shame and the guilt and this, weird relationship we have to stopping and resting and taking time out, and just acknowledging that we are beings whose needs change all the time, and it's so much about being embodied, because this idea that as any human, that our needs don't change all the time is a disconnect from our bodies. It's, where we just value being thinking head machines. So it gives us this great opportunity to come back to our bodies, and then we would all recognize that, because nobody kind of disputes that we need sleep and daytime. Well, I mean, to some degree they probably do. That thing that always makes me crazy when you hear about big political situations, and somebody they stayed up until 2 a.m. to make these really important decisions. I'm like, no one can make really important decisions at 2 a.m. Like that's it's like, just respect the body.
Natural. Yeah.
But that's just not how it works. There is this daylight and darkness, and this is this is the same. It's just another aspect of our like rhythmic nature. So it's sort of elevating it to have that same. We don't need to keep stating it. It's just known. It's kind of it's out there. So yeah, my work is I work one-to-one with people to come to sort of settle them into a practice of menstrual cycle awareness. That's the core practice, is just tracking your personal cycle day by day, what's going on, what's changing, and just noting it down, not needing to make meaning from it, just seeing what's there, and then after a few months you might start to see patterns. Oh, this day is always really tricky, or my cycle's actually fluctuating all over the place, and and so I also work with people looking at hormone balance and the role of diet and that sort of thing as well, with functional medicine, and I also work with groups, which is really powerful to have circles of people who menstruate, hearing each other's stories, even just the tenderness of hearing each other's stories of when you started your period, and everybody's kind of awkwardness and shame, or the differences across generations. That's really interesting, to talk to someone in their 60s. What was their experience like to talk to somebody in their 20s? It's like you kind of feel things are shifting, but there is still awkwardness and shame and stigma. It's it still exists. So we're starting to sort of meet that shame with a bit of dignity, and that's really the essence of this work, is that we're restoring our own dignity and coming back to our own goodness. So yeah, that's really. And the menstrual medicine circle is a specific process that kind of goes into the sort of unconscious. It's a kind of journeying experience where you kind of step into your cycle, the energetics of your cycle, and explore what's kind of going on in each of the seasons, which is just powerfully illuminating every time. And sort of you get out the way of your kind of conscious mind and just go into the energetics of what's going on, and that can just serve as a bit like a tarot reading or something. It serves as a kind of guide for the next period of your life, where you can take in specific questions and inquiries. So it's a really wonderful process.
Wow. I imagine, and I'm even thinking here, because our work is also so related to the wise women of today, or grandmas of today, and what about those women that are already going through a menopause or in their menopause? How can you, like, this type of work can support them? Because you will think, oh no, they don't menstruate anymore, so that's over, but it's not over. Another cycle is another moment of life, which also they have so much to give, and it's so important, and actually it's so beautiful and it's special. So
absolutely, no, it's huge, the kind of perimenopause time, and then menopause, postmenopause. It's that's another huge aspect that needs reclaiming, which is why what you're doing is so brilliant, highlighting the significance and importance of grandmothers and what they have to show and what they have to share. So yeah, this work is still totally accessible to women, and there's many it can help with a real sort of holding through the menopause process, but plenty of women don't come across it until they're menopausal or even postmenopausal. So there can be a bit of a grieving process. That's when the "why didn't I know this earlier" is really significant. But there's still a way of kind of restoring and rebalancing in just the acknowledgement of what has been and how it could have been different. So it's still very powerful, and there's lots of people sort of working in this area, specializing in menopause. I do work with menopausal women more in the in the functional medicine realm, and I would, as it's not an experience that I've had, I would recommend menopausal women to some of my colleagues who specialise in celebrating the second spring, the return after menopause. To that's the time when we really step into the truth of who we are. That phase, that autumn phase of life, which is actually a kind of a rebirth process into something true power. So,
yes. And I can see more and more women out there, and like you said, you probably have other colleagues that work with that, but more and more women are also supporting into that phase, because it's so important that we include everybody, and they don't feel like, okay, this I don't belong anymore. Nothing else is for me. It's just another phase, and a beautiful one that they can contribute so much into
definitely
into the world.
That's the time, because what people say, postmenopausal women, they don't care anymore. It's like they've got nothing to lose. It's like, it's so inspiring. I love, I'm surrounded by many postmenopausal women and mentors, supervisors, and it's incredible to behold that, just being who you are, which is it's the journey of a lifetime, really. And these maps can just give a container to hold us when we feel like, am I going crazy, or or is this okay? And we get to really mature into our sort of self-parenting potential, to hold ourselves through the challenging times, rather than be the crazy woman who needs medicating, or
right.
Obviously there's a role for medications, and some people will hugely benefit from that, but for that not to just be the norm, that there's like this whole other realm to exist in, is it's really magnificent, I think.
Yeah. And what could you say to all of us women? How can we in our daily lives can just connect more to that? Like you say, okay, what way, you said, okay, write down what you're feeling, or is there, do you recommend any way specifically? Should we connect more to nature in what way, or do little things, or I don't know, just tips for women that are out there and really want to get in touch more with that?
Absolutely.
Of course, there is all your programs there and all the beautiful work that you're doing, but some tips of how can we do that, and that connection.
Really, the starting point is that practice of menstrual cycle awareness. It's really such a simple thing. You don't need to, you might want to buy a notebook, but it doesn't need to cost any money. You don't need to see an expert. It's returning the authority to yourself as the expert on your own body, and begin to track. Your first full day of bleeding is considered your day one. So from that point, if you don't know where you are before you've started to track, then going into and there's lots of apps you can use as well, but sometimes the sort of pen and paper thing can be a little bit more organic, and you can record a few more sort of nuances. So just notice, how am I tend to suggest people sort of look at how their energy is. What's my energy like today? You might want to score it or something. What's my sort of appetite like? What's my mood? My sort of tolerance. What's my sexuality? How does my sexuality feel today? Is it kind of open? Is it sort of disappeared somewhere? Is it sort of rising? And pay attention to those types of things. How much sleep it feels good. So it's just coming into this this connection and bringing, curiosity is the best kind of superpower. I think it's the best superpower for everything, but it's definitely just there's no judgment. Nothing is wrong. It's it's not wrong that you feel one way one day and different way the next day. It's like it will all have a context as you kind of gather the data about yourself. So I think that's kind of the core practice. And then I'm a massive fan of like little rituals of like bringing.
I love that. Me too.
So like you said, kind of connecting to nature. I think, you know, even just spending time sort of acknowledging what is, if you live somewhere seasonal, I recognize that that's not true the world over. I'm in England, it's raining, it's spring and it's grey. But what are the qualities that we know about of the seasons? There'll be some sort of understanding of the seasons for quite a number of people, I think, and just, you know, considering, how could that apply to me? What are those things? And then, you know, I would start with creating a ritual around the time of bleeding. You know, gather a kind of a medicine bag or a little box of things that are going to be really, really nourishing, and to find a way to take some kind of time out, whether it's a day off. We could talk about period policies, and which I work for True Sisters as well, where we have a red tent day that we get on additional to our annual leave, where we take a day off when we're bleeding to completely
rest. I love it, really. Wow.
So you might want to talk to more people about that. That's a thing that's coming.
A lot of organizations, we have to learn from this. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's huge, and recognize that it's not something that's available to some people who will be working, parenting. Life doesn't have an unpredictable cycle. You don't know when that day is going to come, but finding some part of that bleed time, days where 1 or 2 usually, where you can sort of shut yourself away, whether it's an extra long bath or just unplugging, taking that time off social media, or whatever is your way to kind of drop in and rest, and I think it's just lovely to have a sort of medicine bag of things, whether it's like chocolate, your favorite tea, a really nice essential oil, something that's going to really honor you, how you might meet, a friend or somebody, in celebration of this like precious time, some things that you only wear at that time, maybe a piece of jewelry, or I have a cloak, a menstrual cloak, which I will wear when I'm bleeding, and it's or a blanket, or something like that just marks it as like, I'm going into my place of deep connection with spirit at this time, and please do not disturb.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. And I think we and this talks so much about self-care, and it's so needed, not just for women, but also for men, for all of us. We got so disconnected, and this is a way really to kind of get that time to slow down and reconnect with ourselves, listen to our body, and like you say, nurture ourselves with something that makes us feel good. I don't know, a cup of tea or a cup of chocolate or something good to eat.
Yeah.
Because we live this crazy life and we don't stop to enjoy the little things. So why not enjoy these special moments like we need it most?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we can stretch that to that time of the bleed being a time that we can ask for help as well. If we live with somebody else, can they take the weight of cooking over that time, or and it's an edge to ask for help. It's 2 edges, resting and asking for help in one time. So those I would recommend people experiment with, and notice how challenging that is as well. There's really good information in how challenging we find that, and be kind to yourself with that, because it's pretty universal that we find that hard. So It's not something wrong with you if you can't do it immediately. So try the small steps, the incremental steps. At Red School we say it's the 1%. Can you just give yourself the 1% of what it is that's needed at this time? Because there's the cycle is it's an alive process. So how we do something in one part of the cycle affects how the rest of the cycle, and nowhere is that more true than how we do menstruation. So how we do the time of the bleed, really, it sets the tone for the rest of the cycle. So, there can be the deeper we rest at menstruation, the higher we come out into the sunshine in ovulation, and that can feel really really expansive and beautiful, rather than a sort of bland nothingness around the whole cycle. So it's but starting by just paying attention, slowing down, paying attention.
That sounds so good and so needed. Oh, that's beautiful. And I guess what kind of where can we find your work? Because I have posted some of the things, and how can people reach out to you? Is it in Instagram, in Facebook? So
yes, my Instagram is kind of the main place. I'm in a forever process of I'm in a very, very long cycle of building a new website. So everything's cyclical, it will happen, but Instagram is where I'm really active. So it's just Abi.Denyer.Bewick.
Got it.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yes. And I track my cycle on Instagram. So sharing each day a sort of word that's particularly resonant with what's going on. So really, and love to chat cycles on Instagram. So do follow me and get in touch.
I love it. And I can see that in your Instagram, you really are so connected to nature, and bringing that connection is so beautiful. So through that, you can even just see her pictures that she posts almost every day or every
my secret, yes. I'm also a big fan of sea swimming. So and watching, and it is a part of just watching the changes, that I go the same time. Well, I don't go the same. I go at dawn every day. So that is obviously changing, but every day the sky is a different color, the sea has a different mood, and it's that reminds me, it connects me. That's my nature too. Yes. I am that is me, and that's a lovely thing to be reminded of.
And that inspires so much, because in these crazy times, we're so working from home. I'm working from home since last year in the pandemic, but we forget to go out and see what's you breathe the air, or see nature, even if there's not much around, but at least see something and go
just
out.
Look up at the sky. Stand barefoot on the ground, even
all the time. Computer. So yes, that's that connection that we need. And so Abi, I think for a final message that you want to give to women out there, especially because this is a celebration for International Women's Day and month, and what would you say to women?
I would say, start to pay attention to your cycle. This is, it's a radical reclaiming of your true nature, to connect you to yourself and to the earth, and to bring harmony throughout your life and your relationships, and have conversations with other people who bleed. Share experiences, get it out of the shadows. It's time is right now. So yes, and have conversations with people who don't bleed about what experience of bleeding is like. Definitely.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, Abi. It's been amazing, this 40 minutes with you, and it's been amazing learning so much on the importance of all this wisdom and how to bring it back. And thank you for the work they're doing in the world, creating so much impact in this. And we all need to learn a lot from you. So yeah, I did learn a lot and want to keep connected with you and learning more for sure, because we women need it. So,
absolutely. Well, thank you for the invitation. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. So yeah, and be part of Grandma's March. So yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it's okay. Keep connected, and now you know where you can reach Abi. So thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Bye bye.